Good evening, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Tim Kirby Russia, where I, Tim Kirby, an American who's lived in Russia for 20 years and worked in the Russian media for almost all of that time, tells you about how things look from the inside, from a Russian perspective. And as of today, the Israeli attack on some buildings, or let's just say attempted assassinations in Beirut, Lebanon, kind of mirror something from recent Russian history. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And as is tradition, after I kind of do my big spiel here, because this is a live stream that's probably recorded when you're seeing it, we may take calls and do the whole questions thing if that works out. And for anyone who is here live, you remember that if you comment anywhere on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore on Telegram, it all goes to one place, and that one place I call the chat. So if you comment anywhere on Telegram where this is being broadcast, I'll see it. So there you go. Simple rules. Now, what about this attack in Beirut? Why do I think that this reflects Russian history, so on and so forth? Okay. Well, let's go back a little bit to before the special military operation. One of the key things that kind of perked a lot of, let's just say, people who are interested in politics and geopolitics, what perked their interest is, why did Biden bail so harshly on Afghanistan? After all those years of fighting in Afghanistan, after all those lives, both on the U.S. NATO side and on the Afghani side, why did they just ditch all the equipment, get on the planes, and flee at that moment in time? Or even just why during the early Biden period, why did they do that? Well, at the time, there was, I'll put it this way, I had a feeling that wasn't exactly unique. Other people also said this, that they had to kind of end one war to start a new one. And so a lot of people think that really when they definitively were sure that this whole conflict with Russia would happen was actually when Biden pulled out of Afghanistan. Because you may remember, if you're a real fan of this channel and you were here a few years ago, how I kept, from my Russian informants, kept getting told over and over and over again in like 2021, Tim, the big one's coming. The big one's coming. The Ukrainians are going to attack. They're going to make a mass attack on Donbass that's going to force Russia to enter the war. And as we can see, that didn't happen. Ultimately, Russia was the one who entered first, although awfully softly, and then came back much, much harder. Okay, so that's the historical context, is no matter what these Western leaders, no matter how arrogant they are or misled, they do seem to understand that even for a really efficient or powerful or the greatest country that's ever lived on earth or whatever, fighting two wars at once is a tough bargain. And so they closed Afghanistan in order to open up Ukraine. Now, recently, Bibi Netanyahu, or as I call him, Biebs, or the Biebster, went to Washington. And of course, this has big meaning. Because there are some things I guess you can discuss over the phone or whatever, or through private channels. But really important stuff in politics, even in the 21st century, seems to get done in person. Like when they really have these big meetings, that's when they tell you something major, or they really work out some kind of deal. And not only did he meet with, the current Democrat, whatever you want to call this Biden-Harris entity that some people refer to them as, the deep state or the blob, whatever, the current sort of setup of the White House. He obviously gave that big speech to Congress where he got 59 standing ovations. If only I could do that. I guess it takes... that's what you get when you do really good bribery, or at least the country responsible for it does a lot of bribery of U.S. politicians in the form of lobbying, which winds up being legalized bribery. But anyways, so he comes to America, and obviously he also went and talked to Trump, and this is another one of these weird things where initially when they met, Trump was all kind of like, standoffish and didn't even seem to want to shake his hand. Then he goes to Mar-a-Lago and they're all buddy-buddy. I don't even understand it, but whatever. So he talked to basically Congress, the entire sort of Beltway Washington world, the potential continuation of the Democrat presidency, or the return of Trump and the under the Republican banner. So Netanyahu kind of talked to everybody, and he comes back, and what does he do? He attacks a foreign country, and essentially is now really goading Hezbollah to come into the conflict. I always kind of in my mind mix up Hamas and Hezbollah, so forgive me if that happens during this process there. It's that letter H, the mysterious letter H, that must be doing it. But anyways, so it kind of, when I was sitting today working under my normal work that I have to do at the computer, I kind of started to put two and two together, like, hey, maybe this is kind of going to trigger another Afghanistan pullout. Because if Netanyahu went to the powers that be in America and worked out some kind of deal where I'm going to go hard, and I'm going to go hard across the border, that probably means that he feels very secure that Washington is going to start contributing more and more to this, troops or weapons or something. Basically, that he's going to get everything that he needs from Washington. At least that's what they told him. Which means if that's true, and like we've seen, no matter what they say, there's a rule. You can only fight one major war at once. That means Zelensky is straight screwed. Because if Hezbollah goes in, then Netanyahu could say, oh no, America, come save me, I'm being attacked by the evil foreign Hezbollah terrorist guys, or whatever he wants to refer to them as. And then that's going to basically make it so that way all the attention, all the bribomania, all of the money vanishing into a big dark hole of a hole never to be seen again, that's all going to shift over to the Israeli front. So guys, that's kind of why I wanted to. I was initially going to write a post about this, but I thought it was kind of a nuanced topic, so I thought I'd get into it here. So this, I think, is going to trigger the necessity to give up on Ukraine because, you know, Israel, that's important. Ukraine, less important. One of the other things I kind of wanted to tell you guys over for a while, I've been kind of thinking about it, but again, I didn't really want to just write it as like some sort of short, blunt post, is I also think that at some point, the way the language is going, and you know how they keep always saying that, you know, deep down, Putin, he wants to attack Europe. He wants to attack Poland. He wants to conquer everything. On the one hand, that's, of course, really dangerous speak. But in terms of the end of the war, if you think about it, if you keep saying over and over and over again ad nauseum that your enemy wants to go through some sort of country, destroy that country as a springboard to go in to the rest of Europe or some other group of nations and smash them. Well, if you think about it, that means that if your enemy were to take 80 or 90% of said country, the springboard, right? They take the springboard, and he takes almost all of it, but not all of it. Could you consider that a win? Would you be able to be able to use your media to sort of spin it that, well, his objective was to conquer all of Europe, but he only got this very large portion of Ukraine? That's a win. We did it, boys. We've won. Everything we did was correct. Biden the genius and all these other Stoltenberg and who the hell else is involved in this? Von der Leyen and Schultz and all these other Macron and all these other idiots. They succeeded. They did it. It's a total victory. I think that also could be, we could possibly see that coming forth, that Zelensky may have to try to actually make some sort of peace because he has to save Israel. So isn't that a little bit ironic? So I'm really hoping that this, especially attack on Beirut, really is the sign of a shift of U.S. politics. Of course, that sucks for people in Lebanon. I've actually met people from Lebanon. They are not happy that they told me our country gets destroyed every 20 years. That's not good. That's not good for them. Probably good for Russia. And guess where I live? Judging by the name of this channel, you know that. So I'm a little bit optimistic today that the murder machine will be shifted away from my doorstep here. So, anyways, let's see. We have some comments. Bibi is in big trouble, says Christopher. Back in Israel, he needed a publicity win, and Congress gave him one. True, but the thing is, Christopher, here's the problem where I'm kind of out of my element. I don't know what really motivates the Israeli public. Like, if you're saying that you think this was more just a true PR trip, it has nothing to do with meetings and strategies. It was all PR to kind of, fix his image and stuff. The problem is, I don't know how the Israeli public would respond to that. Is that their kind of thing? I don't know. I can't really comment on that, but it's definitely possible. Look up Paraguay and the tripartite war. Insane 19th century dictator decided declaring war on all his neighbors at the same time was a good idea. Over 75% of Paraguayan men died in battle. Well, yeah. And I mean, even the, although the Germans did most of the fighting on the Eastern Front, still having to always be looking behind their back, wasting all sorts of rockets trying to bomb London. It's tough. It's tough to fight a two-front war, and yeah, it's also one of the reasons why, despite what they say, most of Russia's army, the main core army for defending Russia, is still in its positions within Russia. That defensive army has to be there just in case another front were to open by some sort of horrible magical situations. So, good comments by Christopher. Very interesting. Christopher thinks it's more of a PR thing. I am hoping, but then again, maybe I'm breathing in wafting whiffs of hopium because I just want this nightmare to be over. Because, when you live inside of Russia, and this thing, like I've told you guys before, this has been going on since, 2014. You just, at some point, you just want this to be over. And it seems like it just only gets kind of worse and worse and worse. Let's just get this damn thing over with. So that's kind of our big issue today. Let's see. Someone said something. This might not be connected to our conversation. Barack Obama, U.S. confirms it asked Twitter to stay open to help Iran protests from 2009. Okay. Oh, that's about the whole Elon Musk potentially messing in Venezuelan policies. Well, I'll tell you one thing about that. Maduro is no idiot. And if the people and his security services believe that Elon Musk and Twitter X or something are working to destroy him, I don't think that they would make that up or over-exaggerate something. I don't think they would, so I tend to more believe it than not. But then again, it could just be the Twitter platform. I don't know, but yeah. So anyways, Elon Musk is a weird character. I really don't know what to think about him. He's kind of intriguing, kind of sometimes does the right stuff, but he's also kind of a con artist and sort of serves the deep state, and then sometimes doesn't. Very weird character. He is I think he's sort of an anomaly that we'll be able to understand if he ever goes to jail, eventually dies, or is sort of betrayed by people around him who can really say what that guy's all about. So very interesting character there, Mr. Musk. So, yes. Oh, wait, I don't even have the thing open. Remember, if any of you guys want to call in, I kind of gave my spiel for today so someone can call in. And remember, if you type anywhere on Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore, then what you're going to get is you are going to get me reading your questions, because they all go to the same place. So, anyways, yeah, so it's kind of a weird time here. I was also listening to other podcasts in both Russian and English about where the war is going, and it seems like Sam wants to talk. Okay, Sam, we'll get back to my podcast listening. Sam, what do you want to talk about today? Does it have to do with shifting the attention of the U.S. military and deep state towards Israel? Or do you think that that's not going to happen, and they're going to have a two-front war and maybe even go to Taiwan, make it a triple, baby?
Well, I agree with the Russian Orthodox brothers that World War Now, which is a Substack or it's like a podcast, they think that we're in the Third World War, and that all these fronts are related. I personally think they're trying to clear the people out of Western Ukraine to allow a place for all of these Israelis to escape to when the plan fails.
Oh, interesting. That's a good. Well, as you've heard me say on this channel, I call this soft World War III because in a lot of ways it is. Because, I mean, this isn't like something like when Iraq fought Iran, where it's sort of one country against one country at the border and this and this. Even in the context of just the Ukraine war, I mean, you know, North Korea, Iran, China, Russia, even if they're not directly militarily involved, there's a lot of intermingling, interaction, interplanning. I mean, Putin's first visit after getting the presidency again, go to China. Xi's first visit after getting his position renewed, go to Russia. I mean, this is yeah, it is very much a broader global conflict, very isolated in Ukraine that's mostly being fought in some sort of sanctions economic realm. So yeah, I would agree with them, but I wouldn't call it like a true world war, or things would be a lot more apocalyptic outside. It's that's why I think soft world war is the term that I sort of use. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are kind of in a softer period of human history too, where people are just so beta and weak. Like Western Europe and America and England, like they're just, well, where are their tough guys that are going to fight their wars? The people that left the West to fight for Ukraine.
Oh, well, I can tell you that much. The tough guys who are going to fight the Russians were the Ukrainian army. Because as like our guest Andrei Afanasyev, who's been on the program a lot, said, one of the reasons the Ukrainians fight so well is because they're Russians. They just don't know it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But the West doesn't have any tough people anymore. They're just, they're the militaries are basically mercenary, get citizenship type of scenarios. And, but I did want to ask another question if we're allowed to change the topic.
Yeah, let's go nuts. Like I said, I only wanted to talk about that one issue. It was just one of those things where it's like too big for a post, maybe not big enough for a whole like 2-hour live stream. But yeah.
I've seen a number of road rage videos in Russia. Is road rage a pretty big deal in Russia? Is there quite a bit of road rage, or would you say
I would just say fist fights, like random fist fights in general, are pretty common. Like the number, I would say, if you take con artistry, corruption, and random fist fight out of Russia, then there is no crime. Like, people don't really steal stuff here, which is really nice. Very few people use drugs, or at least they do a really good job of hiding it. See, a lot of that kind of like crime, whereas just like fight for over something happens all the time.
Yeah. Now, do people fight to the death, or do they fight to the point where
because then you get in trouble.
Okay, so they just, once they're beat up, it's not like out here where they'll destroy somebody's brain in high school over. There's some really bad violence going on in the U.S. in the high schools now. There's a young girl that got brain damage getting stomped by a bunch of.
Bad things happen to people, man. What can I tell you? But I don't know. I don't really have any statistics about it. But on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really happen much. I've had to knock a few fuckers out over stuff in my time. But the thing is, here it's just sort of treated as kind of a more normal thing. In fact, I'll put it this way: in terms of being punished, you are way more likely to not have anything happen to you if it's all fists. If there's no weapons involved, as soon as weapons get involved, that's when it's probably going to be jail time.
Yeah, I see. Now, I've been hearing some naysayers about gun rights in Russia lately, and I keep trying to tell them, no, Tim Kirby said after 2 years you can have a shotgun.
Well, no, you can buy,
citizenship
as soon
after
as
you
you have
got citizenship.
citizenship, you can go out and do the bureaucracy and buy a shotgun. Then after 2 years, you can upgrade it to like semi-auto. And then after another 3 years, it's like a rifle that's semi-automatic, like a real gun, which is just like a non-automatic Kalashnikov.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But in terms of carrying a pistol, it has to be black powder or rubber bullets, or what's the deal again?
The pistols in Russia are, yeah, they're all the rubber bullet kind. The theory is that people can't in Russia. Okay, the Russian stereotype of Russians is like an internal stereotype is that they have no self control, and so that's, I think, sort of the compromise. Is it's like, okay, we'll carry a gun that's in theory non-lethal because people have no self control. So if they kind of go nuts with them, it won't make a difference. And yeah, so that's it. So the only handguns you really see for normal people are the kind that shoot rubber bullets. So which are
Yeah,
readily
I'd
available.
like to see some kind of study on how much pistols are really necessary for personal defense, like home defense. I know it's less than a shotgun and it's less effective, but people are so sensitive about that in the U.S.
Well, yeah,
But
and also the whole thing
it's
about
possible.
here you want to talk about a crime that really doesn't happen in Russia, home invasion. Like one of the things about America is that ironically, even though we're our laws, at least in the past, allowed people to really deal with the home invasion much more. In Russia, that really doesn't happen. Like that was a thing that happened in the '90s out of desperation. It's just this, you have this weird queer quirk that stealing stuff is in like going into someone's house and like taking their TV is just seen as is just extremely low. Like it's not the cool crime. Cool crime is like organizing some sort of syndicate to like steal money from the government or stuff like that.
I see. Um, how's the race relations or whatever nationality relations with the Tajikis now?
That's the same as it ever was, man. There's the macro and the micro, and these things kind of happen in the media, but not much has changed. I mean, one thing. Oh, whoa, so many background noises. Hold on. Oh my gosh, what was going on there? It sounded like, were you cleaning a gun? Maybe, I don't know. But anyways, about these sort of interethnic relations. Well, there's definitely more calls than there were in the past, especially from the public, to get rid of all the migrant workers, right? And as we've talked about on the channel before, in certain states in Russia, they outright banned the whole migrant worker thing. In certain states, they banned certain professions, kind of based on need. But like one of the big lobbies in Russia that really makes it Russia the way it is the construction lobby. So in America, we have like the military-industrial complex or big pharma or whatever. In Russia, it is construction. You do not fuck with construction. They have a lot of pull. And so there's a real fight right now between a lot of civic organizations and let's just say it's kind of the people versus big construction is what's happening in the State Duma. And so incrementally, they're kind of tightening and like they want to get rid of that patent system that we've talked about before, which kind of was supposed to make migrant labor usage more easy, but kind of just sort of opened the door to a lot of problems. So anyways, yeah, I mean, on an average day, everyone in Moscow is here and not that much really happens, it's not like in Cleveland growing up with the white-black divide. That you can fucking feel. Here, it's not so much. But, yeah. So, we'll see where it goes. Hopefully it'll go in the right direction, but it seems to be. It seems like the government really wants to eventually back off on this. There just aren't enough people. That's the one major problem is that there just are not enough people in Russia, and the construction companies don't want to pay. They don't want to pay people to work like American laborers would demand higher pay. So there you go. That's basically it. Anyways, let's see. Do we have any more comments in the chat? Let me do some scrolling here. A lot of vomit reactions to one thing I said. Oh yeah, I've seen, but this is the problem. I even shared this, but I wasn't sure because I've seen people all over say that BRICS has officially declared this whole thing about like the currency is they've said it's going to kind of okay. They've sort of floated the idea, talked about it for now a few years, but now it's like officially revealed. But I don't really see that much information about it online, so I don't know. If the money actually does look like this nice circle made of the 5 flags, that is kind of cool. That is kind of freaking cool. But maybe that's just something that's a theoretical note. But anyways, I would really love to get more information about that if you guys want to share it. But anyway, Sam, let me allow you to speak again. Was that all you wanted to say or anything else? But just to be clear about like the whole migrant worker thing, there's still plenty of them, and I don't think really much has changed because on a day-to-day basis, this stuff doesn't really affect people.
Yeah, I'm really curious about whether or not Russia has, and I think I know the answer, but I guess eternally curious about how the camaraderie is amongst people and how people view each other. I know going through a difficult time can bring a country together.
Yeah.
And what is it doing to society? Are there, like for instance, in the Orthodox Church, are there subgroups or are there subcultures in the Orthodox Church that form more tight-knit communities? Like,
well, that's a quick answer. The old believers. The old believers tend to be more like kind of how the Amish are in America, in some ways. This is way too high. And so they tend to live out in the sticks, and they tend to be more a little bit outside of themselves. But ultimately, Orthodoxy, one of the points of it is to make this sort of overarching movement. And so you don't really see much sectarianism of any kind. In fact, much. To be honest, I don't see any. Besides the old believers, because they broke away from, what was it, Patriarch Tikhon's, or was it Nikon? Oh, jeez, I don't remember. Those edicts.
It was Nikon.
Yeah, that those edicts. So essentially, even then, it's still the same faith. It's just those, let's just say, weird updates from Nikon are rejected. So they're not even really that strongly in disagreement with the mainstream church in a 21st century context. So
yeah, but
there really isn't a divide of any kind that I can see.
Yeah, aren't their liturgies something like 5 hours long?
I don't know that.
I think they have super long liturgies, and but yeah, I would agree with you that
the Amish they only have church once every 2 weeks for some bizarre reason. But when they do, it is a long freaking service. But the services I think do tend to be longer for them. But I can't really say because there aren't that many old believers, and I only passively know a few. I don't know what their faith looks like, sort of on the inside. What their faith? It's the same religion, just again through a slightly different prism there. But yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you, though. Apparently, the old believers stole, or whatever, not stole, but ran away with the cloth that's on the altar. The forget what that cloth is that has relics sewn into it. Mm-hmm. That you need to have one for every church service to do communion. And
I don't know
anyway,
so the more they're not.
Yeah, but basically, back in Nikon's time. Patriarch Nikon's time, they ran away with the cloth and started their own communities. And the Mennonites, because the Mennonites came before the Amish, they ran away with the Bible. So it is kind of funny in a similar way. These two breakaway societies ran off with just part of the church's,
Well, yeah. Well, they share the similarities of there's something that's also they're a particular sort of branch of a religion that isn't backed by the state because Nikon's changes were acknowledged by the state, and so they were like we have in Russia the symbiosis of church and state, and so in a lot of ways I think the old believers kind of had to move far away. I believe there's also old believer communities in Brazil. Due to the Russian Revolution, if memory serves me correctly. So they kind of went to more isolated places, and it's the same thing like with the Amish. It's kind of like a disgust with the corruption of the world, and we're going to be outside of this sinful city, secular universe, and the only way to do that is to live a little bit in isolation. So yeah, it's kind of hard to be this whole death to the world mentality and then live in downtown Los Angeles. Those two things are kind of tough to do at the same time. So
Yeah.
I kind of understand why
Yeah.
they did it.
Hey, on another note, I've been listening to Father Seraphim Rose's what is it, Religion of the Future, or I forget which book it is, but he talks about the protocols of the Elders of Zion, and it was actually published by Sergei. What is the guy's name? Sergei.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, it's the same guy that published Seraphim of Seraphs on the acquisition of the Holy Spirit. So the protocols of the Elders of Zion are they're recognized by the Orthodox Church at large to be true. It's a true document. It's a valid document.
I can't confirm or deny, but I can tell you that one of the things about Seraphim Rose is because he was more in prominence in like the 70s and 80s, this is a while ago. So in some ways Seraphim Rose is really reacting to the sexual revolution and the whole hippie thing. So I think in a lot of ways he was on the cusp, like before the internet, of really seeing where this whole like new age, where new religions were going. And he essentially saw what we saw at the Paris Olympics in that version of this like neo-paganistic crapping on Christianity. He saw like that kind of vision of the future back then. So he's definitely ahead of the curve, and his views on the future of religion are still just as valid today as they were back then. And thankfully, despite the fact that this is all 1970s, 1980s, somehow there's a lot of voice recordings of everything he had to say. I don't quite know who transferred them to YouTube, but thank goodness they did. His wisdom was not lost to, rotting away on cassette tapes or whatever the hell they used, 8 tracks. So.
Yeah, it's Sergei Nilius that published both the Acquisition of the Holy Spirit by Saint Seraphim of Sarov and the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. And it was from his Religions of the Future.
One of the problems, though, you mentioned about like what the church believes or doesn't believe. One of the problems is that in English, a lot of information about Russia is bad. That's a huge problem. One thing gets sort of written by one person, and it just gets repeated over and over and over again about Russia. The whole thing of there's going to be 50,000 what is that? UFMS troopers. Oh my God. Not UFMS, MCHS troopers, which is like the emergency services would be in America controlling something that never happened. If you remember, there was something about like Putin was worried about like Obama killing all the bees on the planet. There's certain things that just come up and they're about Russia, and they get sort of confirmed without you ever finding them. The same thing about how, oh my God, what was that one Lenin quote where it has to do with like, it has to do with lying and propaganda. It's a really famous Lenin quote, but he never said it in Russian. Like, you can't find that in Russian anywhere. So a lot of the stuff, when you come to that, if the information actually doesn't come from a Russian source, a lot of times it's either wishful thinking or an honest mistake or maybe a malicious mistake. So I would be a little bit hesitant to take really serious, nuanced information about Russia from any English language source at this point. So, anyways, thank you for calling in. Ann wants to talk. Ann, do you have something to say? I guess we've gotten into a bunch of topics here, but the core topic today was my theory that Bieb's journey to Washington may be the sign that they're going to and the attack on Lebanon might be a sign that Washington is going to shift its attention to a different front. So that's our overall topic, but you can ask any question you want.
Right, right. Thank you, Tim. This may be for the future or for someone on the call to research. It would be interesting to see the analogies between what happened in the Russian Revolution in 1917, the elements there, to what's happening in the West or in other countries. I think that would be a great intellectual.
Oh, well, we can do that right now. Rock and roll it. That's no problem, man.
Do it.
Yeah, let me then mute you, and we'll talk about that, and that's pretty easy. So one of the key things that a lot of the people I used to work on the radio believed was the mistake of the czars was that they were way too soft on the communist revolutionaries. And one thing that we've heard about over the last few years, it's kind of faded away, but it was a bit of a meme or a slogan, right, was defund the police. Too many police. Let's get rid of them. And when you say defund the police, although, to be honest, I think that there definitely should be an upper limit for how many police there are. As someone who kind of likes a low policing society, when you try to get rid of all the police, it really makes, a revolution much easier. And so one thing that happened during what led up to the especially the initial overthrow of the Tsar was in St. Petersburg. There weren't that many police, or Petrograd technically, but you know what I mean. Really ran out of police. They really weren't enough police to deal with the riots. And then when they, the police at some, what was it, Bloody Sunday or Bloody Monday? I forget what bloody day it was. There was, photographic then even evidence of how the police of the time shot some protesters, and that was used as essentially, part of your kind of early color revolution. There's a bit of debate that I don't want to get into because it's pointless about what was the first color revolution. But as we all know, the Russian Revolution was fought between the reds and the whites, so there was a color element to it, and you definitely had that whole media thing of look at how brutal the Tsar is, this, that, and the other. The Tsar's brutal, but then he doesn't even have that many police to actually enforce law and order on the streets of St. Petersburg. And also, so that kind of reminds me of a lot of the stuff of the whole defund the police thing. Okay, so that's the first thing where there's a similarity. We have this being too soft on crime, which I know it might sound hard to believe from what you maybe heard about the Russian Empire, but think about people like Joseph Stalin. I believe he was arrested at least once, but maybe even multiple times as a communist revolutionary, you know what I mean? And he lived to the end of his life. He lived to the revolution. Lenin's brother was executed for being disloyal to the state. Lenin was not. He was just exiled. So if you see a lot of these communist thinkers and revolutionaries, they were all caught and put in jail at some point and then let out. The Tsar actually was a lot more humane than a lot of his contemporaries. And so that kind of wound up biting him in the butt, because all these people, they went into revolving door prisons, essentially, of maybe not purely revolving door, and especially remember, it was still the 1800s. Prison was not like it is in Norway today. But still, ultimately, it kind of worked out to be something similar. And do we see these processes of sort of revolving door prisons in the United States? Okay, something similar. Although I don't know if they're quite revolving door prisons for people who are conducting revolutionary activities, but still something similar, right? If we, let's see. Lenin became the central figure of the Russian Revolution. Is there some sort of central figure that wants to overthrow America? No. So that's maybe a big difference. There is no magical Lenin. There is no person to be the leader who stands everyone up. Remember, as you've heard on this channel before, people do not stand up, they are risen up, stood up by others. Okay, so there's no Lenin, but one of the major things is that, the Russian Revolution was heavily financed. Lenin lived quite a nice life outside the territory of Russia, and there's always the legend goes that when he came back to the territory of the Russian Empire proper at the time, there was an entire train car or more filled with gold to use for the revolution. Again, true or not, he probably was financed by somebody. So you had some questionable, mysterious financiers. Are there some questionable, mysterious financiers of things happening in the United States? Yes, George Soros at the very least, because that's been proven. So I don't mind talking about that. Other people, not so proven, but yeah. So there's something like that. What condition was the Russian Empire in? Why did a revolution happen? Well, it was a two-phase issue. Because World War I was not being fought particularly well in some of the Russian public's opinion, they wanted this to be over. Also, a lot of people found the war to be stupid, pointless, this, that, or the other. Pointless wars. Maybe that relates to the United States. Anyways, so we have to remember that it was in, February of 1917, the Tsar, under pressure from essentially liberals, people within the system, abdicated to create kind of sort of like a more republic with a constitutional monarch who would do nothing. Okay, but then because the monarch was sort of overthrown and the state had then 6 months of extreme weakness in the middle of a world war. Oh wait, we just talked about how America today might be in the middle of a soft world war. So there's another thing that might be similar, potentially. Who knows? You have this sort of 6 month then period, or wait, more, 8 month period, till the real, true communist revolution, where the communists either got rid of or shot or whatever, did bad things to make the liberals who forced the Tsar to abdicate to give up power. There was the Kerensky government, as I believe it's called. I always want to call him Kerensky, but I believe it's Kerensky, I think is the proper way to say that. Yeah, so that government didn't last long, and because they were very disorganized and this, that, and the other. And then here come the communists, and you have to remember that the communists were actually at the time, or the revolutionaries, were a much more diverse group. There were at least like 4 different political parties, and I can't remember their names. I believe there's one that was called like the SR, like something like Socialist Russians or something. There were a few. But anyways, as you know from history, eventually Lenin's majority Bolshevik Communist Party crushed all of them. Ironically, though, in North Korea, all of the other parties, because it was a similar situation in North Korea, to this day, all of those minority parties still have a few seats in their parliament. Will they ever be able to have the majority? No, but they weren't crushed or like killed off. So, say what you will, the North Koreans were more gentle on that particular issue than the Bolshevik revolutionaries. Right? As we always have to talk about on this fucking channel, the revolutionaries, as Putin himself said, that 85% of them weren't Russians. They were something else. And I think you can take a guess as to what particular ethnic groups or religious groups they may have been. All right. So does that group of people, or some other, let's just say, people who don't really see themselves as Americans, have a lot of power in America? Yes, because if you think of it in a way, all of the postmodernist, globalist type of people, they don't really see themselves as American. America's just the firewood of revolution, as Trotsky said. So, yeah. And is America being used as the firewood for globalism? Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. America has been used and abused to fuel some sort of globalist Francis Fukuyama bullshit vision of the future. The postmodernist, utopia, dystopia, depending on what end of the stick you're on. Get out of here, mosquito. So, and there are some, there's a big list of similarities between the Russian Revolution and maybe some current problems we're having in America. So, food for thought. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, and just because a few things seem similar doesn't necessarily mean anything. But I can tell you one thing. If you have a strong police force, if the public has sort of faith in their leaders, if your economy is in a good condition, you're probably not going to see a revolution. When all those things are the exact opposite, that definitely opens the door for violent political change. You see what I mean? And unfortunately, the United States is sort of in that danger zone at the moment. But will people rise up or anything, or be risen up, I should say, be risen up by someone? Hard to say. I would argue at this point, no. I think passivity has won the day, and I think that things are just going to rot more rather than go nuts. So, And also, there's no central figure. There's no central figure, and the media is firmly on the side of the establishment. So that's a huge issue when the media beats the Washington drum. That is a very, very powerful shield against potential revolution. All right, Sam, you talked for a while. One more question or comment, and then maybe we'll move on to someone else, or something.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to just second what you said, that Lenin was funded heavily, and he was so against central banks. But ultimately, after he was set up, I think it was 1922, he set up the Soviet Bolshevik central bank, and he traded directly with Olaf Aschberg, a Swedish banker of Russian Jewish descent who served as head of the Stockholm bank Nya Banken, and sold what.
Oop, I lost you.
And sorry, yeah, and he sold whatever meager agricultural output that the Soviet government was able to put together after they destroyed their own economy. He sold it to Olaf Aschberg in Sweden. So, yeah, these people, it was subterfuge. It's part of a tikkun olam. They want to shake up the world and destroy it to bring about their world dynasty.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. If long story short, thank you for, again, commenting. With all the communist revolutions that have happened, they're all really ultimately hypocritical. Someone could say, well, Tim, they're not hypocritical because you have to have socialism before you can have communism. But, even from the very beginning, a lot of the promises, they like every revolution, they never met any of those goals, and they never even tried. And even from the very beginning, it was pretty clear that they had no intention to. I think it was just a power grab, and a pure thing like that. Kind of like with the late Alexei Navalny. I don't think he actually really deeply gave a shit about anything. I think he just wanted the power. He wanted to be the next Yeltsin. I think that's ultimately what he wanted more than anything. And perhaps Lenin was the same way. Because remember, what did the Communist Party drive in 1917, 18, 19? Rolls Royces. There you go. So, all right. Let's see. Is there anything else to talk about here? Let me look in the comments. Someone's typing. Christopher says, the Israeli public is deeply split. Well, not surprising. Christopher continues, Russia already has a Jewish autonomous republic. Any Jew who can behave should be welcome. Well, the problem is, Christopher, you have to remember that Israel has supported, all of the evils done to the Russians in Ukraine. So a lot of the people who are responsible for that, or partially responsible, are not very welcome. Mark, in the book by Richard Poe, How the British Invented Communism and Blamed It on the Jews, states that Lenin and the Bolsheviks were funded by the Crown and the Fabian Socialists. You could have both. You can have a lot of people funding a lot of things they like. You have to remember that these communist salons, or whatever they would be called, I forget maybe the proper terminology, these intellectual groups and salons that were happening all across Europe and stuff, a lot of them were privately funded by weird rich people. So it's not everything is a conspiracy thing. Some things can be a conspiracy and not a conspiracy. Think about how political candidates in America are funded. They get $5 from Grandma, $10 from Billy Joe, and then they get millions of dollars from some sort of conglomerate, and then from the Israel lobby, but then also from the Ukrainian lobby, and from also all sorts of other lobbies and this, that, and the other. So it becomes, nothing is quite so open and shut. So anyways, the Rosebot is also not liking some of the words we've been using here. So anyways, guys, I'll sort of do a recap of what I talked about earlier, because oh no! What happened? Why'd the video go away? What was that? No, what happened? The video just vanished. Oh no. Okay, well, I'm back now. Sorry about that. Alright, but anyways, if people want to call in now, because I think I'm going to get going here, or type a message. So I'll just recap what I talked about earlier for those who are just joining us. Basically that, long story short, it looks like Netanyahu's journey to Washington and all that was to make a deal. Because as soon as he got back, he's attacked a foreign country. He's going to draw Hezbollah in, and that's going to require full support of the United States, which means, just like Biden did in Afghanistan, he's going to have to pull out to free up resources and manpower and this, that, and the other. And he might be doing that in Ukraine. This could be the real end of Zelensky, and it could also be that Zelensky knows this is happening, and that's why his tune has sort of changed. A lot of people think that Zelensky is trying to sucker the Russians into some sort of terrible fake deal or something, where, after all these years and after all this war and all this pointless death, now all of a sudden he seems to want to maybe talk. There's something else happening behind the scenes, and maybe this is all tied in deeply to the Israeli situation. But anyways, nobody wants to talk, so I'm out of here, guys. Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore, signing out.